Hey, I'm Alex from BoardGameCo, and welcome to my attempt to actually get quality, well-edited footage on this channel, because if you ever thought you were going to see editing on this channel, this is the one time, and that's because I am currently watching Quackalope's well-edited video of Dead Reckoning, which featuring yours truly. So first of all, link up above, link down below, head on over to Quackalope's channel, check out the full gameplay video. It's an hour and 20 minutes, it's an easy watch. There's plenty of time for it, you can get it done, but ultimately this was a thoroughly enjoyable experience for me. I drove down to Kentucky a week and a half ago or something, maybe 2 weeks ago by now, and basically spent the afternoon playing games with Jesse and talking shop and playing Dead Reckoning. That's why I went down. Forget that guy, I'm in it for the games. In any case, this is my review of Dead Reckoning. As always, I should probably say this in the beginning, but whatever. Timestamps down below in case you want to skip what I just said or you want to skip to specific parts. But I'm going for a format here, and this is a format that I'm going to be trying to incorporate into probably most of my reviews of Kickstarter games in general. Now, the reason for that is because a big part of this channel is to be anti-hype. Because of it. It's when it comes to a retail game, when it comes to a game that's available, I don't mind giving my full and frank opinion, positive, negative, hyping it up, all that stuff. But when it comes to a game that isn't readily available, a game whether I've played it on Tabletop Simulator, whether I've played it with the publisher, if it's a game that's not readily available, my goal is to take an anti-hype approach to the review. Now initially, I thought that the way I would do that is by just being as negative as possible, but that felt disingenuous. It didn't feel like who I am to just not trash, but to find things that didn't bother me for the sake of trying to be critical didn't feel genuine to me. It didn't feel like something that I would actually want to do. And so I slightly adjusted my format, and again, timestamps below in case you want to skip this whole monologue, but I slightly adjusted to the way I want to do the format in the sense that I will start with things I didn't like about a game. From there, I will jump to things I could see someone not liking. And then finally, I'm going to go into what I actually didn't like. And things that I can see someone not liking is a big part, because very often I can find things that might be a turnoff for one person or another, but weren't a problem for me. And that's going to be most of my review of Dead Reckoning. And so with that lengthy startup aside, let's jump into it. And so, let's cover Dead Reckoning the video. So Dead Reckoning, as you already know by now, is a pirate-themed game coming from AEG. It is a game that is a card crafting game. I already did a Kickstarter, should you back it or not. That was before I played this game, to be very clear, and my opinion of that stands. Ultimately, well, I shouldn't say it stands. It is slightly modified, slightly improved by the fact that I now know it's a game I enjoy. In other words, should you back it or should you not, is ultimately a judgment call based on what we know. But the fact that I now know this is a game I like does slightly improve my chances of whether it's a good back, or my opinion of whether it's a good back, but only slightly, because the rest of it stands on its own. In terms of this game, in terms of what I didn't like, let's start with what I didn't like. It is a card crafting game by John D. Clear, and it's a card crafting game in which you are exploring the Seven Seas, attacking, fighting, plundering, putting your tokens on the board, area control, whole bunch of things, upgrading your deck, upgrading your ship, a lot of things coming together as a cohesive unit to ultimately deliver a gameplay experience. Now, the first thing I didn't like is it's nitpicky, and it doesn't stop me from enjoying the game at all, but it is something I didn't like, which is I didn't like the endgame cleanup of dismantling the card crafting system. At the end of the day, throughout the game, you are slowly slotting more and more cards into those sleeves, and sure, it's only 12 cards, but you have to put a bunch of cards in there, and at the end of the game, you have to dismantle each of those cards, pulling them all out, sorting them into separate piles, and cleaning up. Does it stop me from enjoying the game? Not in the slightest. It's a great game. I really liked it. But it is certainly an annoyance. It's certainly something to be aware of as an annoyance, and it is going to be an annoyance in any card crafting system. It's an annoyance in any deck building system. Anytime you have to sort those cards out after, that's a factor. Again, still love the game, but I certainly didn't like that. The other thing I didn't like, which is probably more key, but again, did not stop me from liking the game, is the early game luck. While I will get to the luck in general in my what I can see others not liking, for me personally, there's enough things that happen in the early game that can certainly be luck dependent, such as which island you head to, the amount of barrels you start with, is there an upgrade you can buy on turn 1 or not. Wherever you end up, you might have 3 barrels and draw a card that costs 4 barrels to upgrade. And that means whereas your opponent has started off the game with a early upgrade, or maybe even 2 upgrades early game, you may not be able to. And that early game luck is a little bit annoying. Not significantly so. Certainly did not affect my enjoyment of the experience. Certainly did not affect my desire to play this again. But it is one critique I can give into my own personal opinion of things I didn't love about the game. It just felt, and by the way, it didn't actually it didn't negatively affect our play. I don't think either one of us were negatively affected by early game luck, but we saw already, based on how the cards come out, that can happen. So a slight ding against that, because early game luck, as you can imagine, will only magnify over the course of a long game, especially in a game where you're building an engine, where you're building a deck. And so that would be a slight critique of something that I saw that was a flag to me personally. Past that, that's all I have for things I didn't like, which should tell you a lot about how I feel about Dead Reckoning. So from there, let's go into the things I can see other people not liking, and that's a bigger list. And it's, again, nothing that bothered me in the slightest, but it might bother you. So to begin with, I'm going to cover setup, and this one's a bit of a cheat because I didn't set up the game. Jesse was a prince of a human being, and by the time I showed up, this was set up on the table. I had nothing to do with setting it up. I did have to do with cleanup, and that was pretty easy, all things considered, except for that card thing, which a little bit annoying. But the setup of this game might be a bit overwhelming. I don't think it's significant, but there's enough going on, there's enough table presence that take into account this is not a small game. This is a big game that you have to set up on a table, and there's a lot going on here, which brings us to point 2, which is it is a table hog. For me personally, I have a large game table. This is not a problem at all. But this isn't the kind of game that I would bring to someone else's game night as easily, because it's not the biggest game I've ever played with, not by a long shot, but it certainly is certainly takes up its presence on the table. You have these 12 tiles, which are already a big enough system. You have all the components to one side, the dice tower or whatever it is, the ship tower to the other side. This is a game that certainly takes up space on the table, and that's something to consider whether it's right for you. Is this something that is going to work for you and your table? Because coincidentally enough, we have Tiny Epic Pirates. If you're looking for a pirate game that is not this game at all, but has a pirate theme that is more likely to fit on your table, Tiny Epic Pirates will better suit that, need. Although I will note, the box is a lot tinier than the actual game, even in that one as well. From there, we're going to have Luck of the Cube Tower, meaning we have this cube tower. You can see, we can see it in the shot over here a little bit, but you have this dice tower where you're throwing in cubes to fight battles, and whenever you have a ship battle. And there is going to be luck involved in that. You can have somebody with, 2 cannons fighting someone with 6, and especially because of the nature of the exploding dice and how the battles are resolved, and how the fact that where you roll your cubes are not necessarily indicative of damaging your opponent, but they might be indicative of taking plunder or things like that, which means you can wind up in a situation in which somebody with fewer cannons than yourself will win the battle, and win it pretty clearly and easily. And that can certainly be a factor. Additionally, I've seen people comment in my other video, and I agree, but it doesn't bother me, that because of the way this particular cube tower is set up, it doesn't have the usual folds or whatever that a regular cube tower has. You can kind of manipulate that. You can kind of perfect your throw and toss them one way or the other, which in a weird way takes away from the luck aspect, but then puts it in this weird control game where someone can get better at the way they throw their cubes. Doesn't bother me. I mean, those things are both part of the nature of this game. To me, meaning it's a pirate game with cannons. Of course, once in a while, some things won't go your way. And for me and my game group, no one is playing this game enough times that we have to worry about someone specifically learning how to roll their dice or roll their cubes down that tower. But again, it might bother you. Next up, we have luck in general. Luck in general is prevalent in this game. Now, I mentioned already, for me, it was a little bit of a flag early game. As the game developed, I can't say I was worried about it at all or thought about it at all. But the sequence in which you draw your cards, the fact that you might draw cards that don't work well together, even though you built a fairly cohesive deck. The sequence of where the upgrades come out, where the various tiles you explore come out, which tiles are there, the cube tower we just talked about. There is definitely a decent amount of luck in this game. Nothing that I would consider a luck fest. Nothing that I would consider a detractor from the experience I was having, but it certainly is a game with luck. If you are looking for the next, I don't know, whatever high, if you're looking for the next Agricola, Caverna, any heavy Euro with less luck going on in it, this is not that. This is a fun, adventuring exploration game with a lot of strategy, but it's a deck builder, and first and foremost, if you're playing a deck builder, understand that there's going to be luck in a deck builder. When you pull up your cards, with the sequence in which you get your cards, there's going to be luck in this game, and if you don't like deck builders because of luck, this is not for you. If you find the amount of luck in a deck builder totally fine, this probably would be just fine for you. Next up from there, we have lack of combat. Now, this is something I'm actually going to touch upon when I talk about pros, but this is a pirate game in which, speaking for Jesse and myself, we had one fight the entire game. And that fight came at the very end. Literally, it happened at the end when Jesse triggered endgame, and I was like, screw it, I'm going in, guns blazing, gonna take you down. I didn't take him down, it is what it is, but whatever. But this is a pirate game in which you may have no combat at all. Now that's going to be totally dependent on the players, obviously, because you could just upgrade your guns. If you want to have a fight, you can go and have a fight. But this is definitely something, if you're expecting this to be a game where that cube tower is going to be used all the time, that will depend on your game. That will depend on the way you upgrade your deck, the actions you take. This is certainly a game that can involve bashing each other over the head again and again and again if you go down that path. At the same time, this is a game where you can have a fairly peaceful area control, deck building, merchant and exploration game with minimal to no fighting. And that might not be what you signed up for. But again, you can definitely affect that yourself. This is not something where you're tied in. If your opponent is sitting there just being all nice and merchanty or whatever, destroy his ship. Sink him. Don't feel bad. Teach him that he should have come to this table willing and ready to fight you. And lastly, and this is not something that I experienced, but I can see it as a problem, which is downtime. Now, Jesse and I were fairly quick back and forth. We had no concerns, no issues whatsoever. But there's enough going on in this game that in a 3 or 4 player game, I can see the downtime being a little bit annoying. You might have your it's a deck builder, but it's a deck builder with more going on the board. So whatever level of downtime you're used to seeing in Dominion, in Quest for El Dorado, in Star Realms, and whatever, I think Quest for El Dorado is probably a better choice than those, but any sort of deck builder you have where someone has to, Monumental, where someone has to sit there and figure out their cards and how they work together and what their turn is going to look like, that's going to be magnified by the number of players you have. Now, I walked into this game not expecting or thinking that 2 players would be the ideal player count. In fact, I was very worried whether it would tarnish my enjoyment of the game. And while that was not the case, now I have the reverse side. What is it like with 3 and 4? Maybe 2-player is optimal. I don't know. So keep in mind that downtime in any deck builder with an exploration system is going to be a factor. I don't think this is going to bother me. I think this is going to be significantly less than Monumental, which I already like and own. But it is something to consider as a factor. Now, with all that being said, and by the way, this is me nitpicking. This is me trying to find the things that someone else might not like. And I guess, by the way, in all fairness, I should probably throw in price. Price could be a factor why you might not like it, why it might not be a fit for you. And I don't mean that dismissively. I mean, I don't consider that in my reviews as much because I expect that determination is made more by yourself. That's something you have in front of you. You have that price, and you have to obviously make that determination. But as of right now, the Kickstarter is an okay value. It's not an amazing value. I mean, if you want that all-in pledge, it's 120. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's a good value in the sense that this isn't going to retail and you can't get it elsewhere. But this is a decent amount of money for a game that is good. I mean, if you include Merchants and Marauders plus the expansion, you get a whole lot more gameplay experience for less money than this. Although the expansion might be out of print, so I don't know about that. But it might be overpaying for the experience you are getting, but I did like the game a lot, and for me, that's not a problem. But for you, that might make it a game that's just not right for you. I apologize to you, Jesse. That phrase comes from, if you watch Quacklow's videos, they have a whole, might be right for you, might be wrong for you format. So when I say right for you, wrong for you here and there, I am totally not stealing your format, although I am stealing your video footage. Hope that's okay. And finally, what I liked. So let's go into what I liked about this game. Why did I like Dead Reckoning so much? So to begin with, the simple one, the components were top-notch, and it's a prototype. This is a prototype game with nowhere near finished components, and I already liked the world they were building. I already liked the art, the levels of components, and they're upgrading that even further in the Kickstarter. You have metal coins you can buy as an add-on. All these pieces we're playing with were mostly prototype components. The cards weren't as good as they should be. The various forms of the cardboard weren't as good as they should be. And overall, despite being a prototype, despite not being done, I was fairly impressed with the visual representation of this game. I enjoyed it a lot, was totally pulled in, thought it was very well done. Next up is deck building. I love deck builders. I'm a huge fan of deck builders. I'm very nitpicky and precise about which ones stay in my collection, but I love the concept of building a deck. I love the concept of being in control in how your engine is going to play out, of being able to adjust and pivot to not just what's available to buy, but what type of deck are you trying to build? Are you trying to build a merchant-heavy deck where you can put more cubes on the board quickly? Are you loading up on guns for that inevitable battle where you're going to have to sink your opponent? Are there certain abilities and wheels and different things you're going to add to your deck to adjust the experience you're having? And I love that. And I loved it more in a card crafting system because there's more control. Remember that luck aspect of deck builders? In a card crafting system, you have more control over minimizing that luck, specifically because you can pair things together, meaning as opposed to a deck builder where you might need certain cards to show up together, in a card crafting system you can ensure they do. As long as you craft the cards so that those two icons or whatever are together, then you know you'll have a turn where you have 2 guns and a barrel showing up in one turn. You can define that. You may not be able to confirm when it's going to happen, you can't control for that, but you can control certain elements of deck building that I really valued. I liked it a lot. This is my first experience with the card crafting system, and I don't think I'm actually going to go out and get Edge of Darkness, but I'm kind of tempted to because of how much I liked this game. From there, we have variable ways to play. Now, this is something I touched upon where I talked about the lack of combat. But the fact that you can play this game in variable ways, the fact that you can have a combat-heavy game, a merchant-heavy game, you can have someone pushing the end game so that you have aggressive, fairly short game, or you can have 2 people just having fun in the open seas and dragging it out. This is a game, and by the way, to be clear, Jesse pushed endgame. I did nothing to push endgame. This is purely, exclusively Jesse. So a single player was able to make this game take only an hour. That's interesting to me. I like the variable experience that can be delivered in this game. Now, this is a promise I saw back when I first played Merchants and Marauders, which I liked quite a bit. But this game is delivering that same promise in a very different gameplay system, but it's delivering that same promise of be a pirate, do what you want to do, build up your treasure troves, take over control of various islands, influence the people, or just sink your opponent's ships. There's a lot that you can do in this game and lots of different ways it can play out, and I am excited to continuously explore that. From there, we have variable endgame triggers. Now, variable endgame triggers is kind of in hand with the first thing, but there are all these different endgame triggers, and if you watch the video, if you watch Crackleup's gameplay video, you'll get a better feel for that. But the endgame triggers are all these different ways that you can push endgame so that no 2 games will be the same. Do you want to collect the most treasure? Do you want to trade in a bunch of barrels of goods to get one of the tokens for endgame? Do you want to sink a bunch of ships, explore a bunch of islands? There are multiple ways to trigger, to slowly escalate the triggering of endgame, and they're all different, which allows you to explore different paths every time. It goes back to that different ways of playing where I can walk from one game to the next and have a different feel for what I want to do, for what that experience is going to be. I like the theme. The theme, I talked about some other videos, but the theme, I'm a sucker for a pirate theme, and I'm a sucker for a well-implemented pirate theme, and make no mistake, this is a well-implemented pirate theme. It's not technically pirates, I guess. It's called Dead Reckoning, but you could be a merchant, you can be a pirate, you have that sense of exploration, you have that sense of developing your crew. I would say the developing your crew bit is something that Merchants and Marauders didn't do particularly well or at all, but in this game you develop your crew, you upgrade your ship, you explore the 7 seas, you attack other people, you acquire presence, or you not acquire, you build up a presence on the islands. This feels piratey, and it does piratey well. I really enjoy it. And the battles, again, I understand that throwing cubes down a little tower isn't exactly how pirate battles typically went, but it's fun. You're blasting your cannons, and hopefully you will sink someone's ship and take some of their treasure and also score some victory points in the process. Because if I recall correctly, victory points were the currency of pirates back in the day. That along with gold doubloons or whatnot. Additionally in this game, I like the feeling of progression and accomplishment that this game gave you. I liked it a lot. The progression comes primarily through upgrading your cards. It was a lot of fun. And again, it has a typical deck builder feel, but with a twist. And it's a twist that feels right. You start the game with 12 cards, and that is all you will ever have the whole game. No more and no less. But you will upgrade those cards every round. At the end of your turn, while it's someone else's turn, you'll be able to flip one of these cards, upgrading your bosun, upgrading your captain, your deckhand. There will be ways to automatically slowly upgrade your crew, representing the experience that they are gaining, but also doing it in a pivotal way in which you can react to your opponent's turn and choose your upgrade during the turn. You can see me doing it right now. I'm flipping a card right now as we speak, where I can see what Jesse is doing, and I can say, you know what, based on what he just did, I think I need an extra gun. And so I upgrade that guy. I give him a little training on the spot, teach him how to fire an extra gun, figure it out. But there's a sense of progression in this game. And then, of course, as you are exploring the islands, you find more cards that you can sleeve into those cards and again, continuously upgrade and develop your crew. As you play the game, you're going to get presence on different islands that will pivot and shift the abilities you have, because some islands will give you abilities, as well as the status of the game. There's a real sense of progression. There's a real sense of 2 or 3 or 4 pirates having just found a new developed territory and started their pirating or non-pirating journeys together and figuring it out. You have this sense of progression and exploration across the board, and I really, really enjoyed that. And lastly, this is an area control in a 2-player game that worked. I was shocked by that. I'm not shocked, I guess. Other games have done it, but I generally don't like area control in two-player games. I generally don't enjoy direct conflict in two-player games. I find that it has to be done with such a fine-tuning of the way it's balanced to actually deliver an experience that works. Especially area control. I mean, who wants to just trade cubes back and forth all day? That seems boring. There's no nuance. There's no intricacies that you would find in a 3 and a 4-player game experience. And I was worried walking into Dead Reckoning that this would not be a game that would work well at 2 players, that I'd think it's okay and then constantly wonder, should I drop my pledge, should I not, who really knows? Now I can't speak for how it plays at 3 and 4, I didn't do that. But at 2 players, it thrived. It was excellent. Even the area control was excellent. And the combat, perhaps going head-to-head in combat, I can see it playing out. This maybe I should go in my what I can see being a problem area. But I can see it being a problem if you did take a very combat-heavy approach in a 2-player game. That might potentially end up with a situation where one player is beating up on the other. I can see that being an issue. I'm not saying it is. I can see the potential for that. But in our game, where combat was minimal, this was an excellent 2-player experience, coming in at an hour after rules. That is excellent. This is the kind of game that I can pull out with the heaviest of my gamer friends and feel like we're getting a good, meaty, delicious meal. But it's also something I want to pull out with my wife, because it's been a long time since we played Merchants of Erratas. A long, long time, and I had fun doing that, and I am looking forward to doing this again with her. My daughter's probably a little intense. I mean, she is 7, but it's probably a little intense for her. Overall, those are my thoughts on Dead Reckoning. This is a game I really enjoy. This is a game I really like. This is a game I am excited to play. But there are elements that I can see being issues. And price is a big one, unfortunately. Price, based on the value right now, there are other games you can get that will give you good experiences, great experiences for less money. If you do like the concept of Dead Reckoning, you want to try that, try Merchants and Marauders. I think I prefer Dead Reckoning, but it's been a long time since I played Merchants and Marauders, so I can't say for sure. But I like deck building better. I think I like Dead Reckoning better than Merchants and Marauders. I think I can say that pretty certainly. But again, if you're gauging this Kickstarter based on how expensive it is and whether you want it that bad, and at the end of the day, the fact that I liked it does not mean you will, then that's certainly a factor. And it's one you should take into account. As well as, of course, all the other potentially critical things that I said and talked about and whatnot. Table hog, downtime, luck in general, all those things. They're all factors. You have to make a decision for yourself, but hopefully in some way you found this helpful. I hope you enjoyed. I am Alex Radcliffe from BoardGameCo. Tell me if you liked this format. Tell me if you liked it. I think I'm going to try to stick with it in general when I do Kickstarter coverage in terms of when I've played a game. Because again, like I said in the beginning, I find it disingenuous to say something is a problem with a game when it wasn't a problem for me. At the same time, it's very easy to say why I think this might be a problem for someone else. I enjoyed Dead Reckoning. I am looking forward to this game. I am looking forward to the expansions and the numerous extras that I will probably pay for and maybe or maybe not play. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from BoardGameCo. Subscribe down below, comment, like, share. I mean, who shares? Do you share YouTube videos? I don't share YouTube videos. I comment and like. I don't know if I share them, but hey, if you share YouTube videos, comment that you do. That's helpful. Comment that you do. Until next time, I am Alex. Have a great weekend. I don't know when you're seeing this. I'm filming this on Friday. You are seeing this Sunday, so have a great Sunday? I think so. Have a great week, and until next time, have a good one.